Part 37. Martial Arts, Become Invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 361. Today's Wuxia army is the capital of the Shangguan clan's restoration of the country. It has been hidden in secret and cannot be used easily. Once the Wuxia army is exposed, the Zhou dynasty will be vigilant and will madly hunt down and surround the Wuxia army until they are completely wiped out. Shangguan Ao said calmly, the current chaos among the three kingdoms is the time when our holy religion is profiting. You disguised the Wuxia army as bandits and rebels, and Zhou couldn't see it. You can also secretly break the relationship between De Liang and De Zhou, intensify their fighting, and consume De Zhou's national power. Subordinates obey. Feng Mo Shenyi accepted the order respectfully, and then asked, what about Xiao Zhantian, what should this person do? Although Feng Mo wants to kill Xiao Zhantian, he has to admit that Xiao Zhantian's strength is beyond his match. Xiao Zhantian is already a true master of the integration of heaven and man. If he were to fight against him, he would not be able to make a single move. Will be shattered into pieces. Shangguan Ao pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, Bodhi Temple is the state religion of Daliang. The Gangxiang of Bodhi Temple has broken through the realm of heaven and human for more than 30 years, and his strength is extraordinary. If Xiao Zhantian wants to destroy the Xiao royal family in Daliang, he will definitely confront Bodhi Temple Gangxiang. You send people to watch the battle secretly, looking for opportunities to take advantage of it. As long as there is a chance, I will personally take action and kill Xiao Zhantian in one fell swoop. Feng Mo's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he said excitedly, the snipe and the clam fight, and the fisherman gains. My subordinates understand. Go ahead. After Suanzun Shangguan Ao finished speaking, he closed his eyes again and began to rest. Feng Mo Shenyi bowed respectfully and slowly exited the hall. After leaving the 19th hall, Feng Mo Shenyi took a deep breath and looked at the steps below the hall. And Long Dao. There were soldiers on both sides of the Long Dao, and Blackbird King flags with black background fluttered in the wind. Feng Mo had murderous intent in his eyes, and murmured to himself, Xiao Zhantian, your end is coming soon. By the way, this time I go to Daliang and take the golden-faced Lion King with me. Feng Mo suddenly thought of the golden-faced Lion King. Ever since the golden-faced Lion King became the protector of the holy cult, the Night Emperor, he has never done any tasks for the holy cult. The mission to go to Daliang this time is important, and the golden-faced Lion King is such a powerful person. A powerful helper cannot be wasted. A sneer appeared on the corner of Feng Mo's mouth, and he disappeared into a gust of wind in an instant. Feng Mo's light skills were unparalleled among heaven and man, and the best in the world. Great Zhou Dynasty, Jinling City, Bijinfuzi. Xiao Wuji went to Bijinfuzi for duty as usual. Xiao Wuji walked on the road unhurriedly, but his thoughts had drifted to Daliang tens of thousands of miles away. If you want to completely exterminate the Xiao family in Daliang, just relying on an incarnation of a heavenly being is not enough. You must take action personally. What reason should I find to leave Jinling City legitimately? Xiao Wuji is now a member of the Imperial Guard, 13 Taibao, and a close confidant of the Emperor. He cannot leave Jinling City for no reason. Of course, Xiao Wuji can let the incarnation of heaven and man stay in Jinling City to disguise himself, and then he leaves Dazhu and goes to Daliang. Incarnation of heaven and man, as long as you don't meet a master of the integration of heaven and man, you won't be seen through. But the incarnation of heaven and man is also a powerful combat force. It would be a waste to stay in Jinling City. The Gangxiang of Bodhi Temple is also a master of heaven and man, and he also has the incarnation of heaven and man. Xiao Wuji only goes to his own body, no one can deal with Gangxiang's heavenly incarnation. When the fight breaks out, Xiao Wuji's true body will be held back by Gangxiang's true body. Gang Xiang's heavenly incarnation joins forces with Seven Swords King Xiao Hung. Xiao Wuji has no fighting power to stop the two of them. Therefore, Xiao Wuji's heavenly incarnation cannot stay in Jinling City and must go together. We must find a way to leave Jinling City. Xiao Wuji thought as he came to Bijinfuzi. After entering Bijinfuzi, Xiao Wuji was summoned by Yuan Xiong before his butt was hot. Xiao Qinhu, Yuan Qinhu invites you. 100 households came to Xiao Wuji and said respectfully. Nu. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly, stood up, and walked to Yuan Xiong's house. Wuji, you are here, come in quickly. Seeing Xiao Wuji's arrival, Yuan Xiong immediately greeted him with a smile. Seeing Yuan Xiong's appearance, Xiao Wuji smiled in his heart. He knew that Yuan Xiong must have a task for him to do. And it just so happened that Xiao Wuji needed an excuse to leave Jinling City. This is really a place where you can't find anything even if you wear iron shoes. It takes no effort to get there. Third brother, what do you want from me? Xiao Wuji asked with a smile. Yuan Xiong said you must have heard about Daliang. It was originally led by the 4th Taibao Sima Lang. But now the two countries may go to war at any time. After all, the fourth brother's strength is still a little bit behind, so the third brother wants to send you. The 4th Taibao Sima Lang, Xiao Wuji has heard of this person's name, but has never seen him. Of the 13 Taibao in the Great Zhou dynasty, only the 3rd Taibao Yuan Xiong sits in Jinling City all year round. Xiao Wuji ranks 13th and is the last one to take the top position. He was also the youngest and most junior, so he was not sent out, but stayed in Jinling City. Except for Yuan Xiong and Xiao Wuji, the other 11 eunuchs were all sent out. Some guarded several important cities in the Zhou dynasty. And some set up a Jinyue intelligence network in the enemy country to detect the enemy's intelligence. Sima Lang is the leader of the Daliang intelligence network. He is a master, ranked 29th on the Earth ranking. In normal times, a Earth ranking Grand Master is enough to sit in Daliang, but now the two countries are about to go to war at any time. When the national war broke out, it was not only a head-on confrontation between the armies, but also a secret confrontation between the two countries' spies. A Dibang Grand Master seemed a little weak, so Yuan Xiong wanted to send Xiao Wuji to Daliang. Yuan Xiong said you can think about it. If you don't want to go, third brother can inform second brother Zhou Chunkaiu. It just so happens that the matter in northern Xinjiang is over, and brother Zhou can go too. Xiao Wuji shook his head and said, no, I'm willing to go. It just so happens that I have some free time recently. I have been bored all day long, so a trip to Daliang is just in time. Xiao Wuji was worried that he had no reason to go to Daliang. Now that Yuan Xiong gave him a reason, how could he not go? Yuan Xiong smiled and said that's good. Although going to Daliang this time is dangerous, it is also an opportunity. If you can make great contributions, it's easy to get promoted. Xiao Wuji nodded and said, I understand, little brother. In fact, I can't stop complaining in my heart. If the Xiao royal family in Daliang can be destroyed this time, then the entire Daliang will be his. By then, Xiao Wuji will be the founding emperor. How can he care about a small title in Dazhu? Yuan Xiong said you should set off as soon as possible. This time I went to Daliang, the fewer people there, the better, so as not to attract attention. Xiao Wuji nodded and said, I will only take Shuihua and Song Liman with me. Okay, I thought so too. Yuan Xiong nodded slightly. Obviously, both of them excluded Xia Xinran. As Xiao Wuji said before, it is impossible for Xia Xinran to go to Daliang no matter what. After leaving Yuan Xiong's Qinhu residence, Xiao Wuji returned to his Qinhu at the residence. Shuihua and Song Liman were called. Sir, do you have a mission for us? Finally there is a new mission, and we are almost bored to death during this period. Recently, they have been paying attention to the Nangong family's recruitment of a son-in-law every day, which is equivalent to taking a vacation, and it is also very boring. Now that they finally have a task, the two of them can't wait. Xiao Wuji looked at the two of them and said, "Get ready. Follow me to Daliang." When the two of them heard this, their eyes suddenly lit up. "Real? Can I really go to Daliang? Very good." Shuehua and Song Liman have wanted to go to Daliang for a long time, but they have never received the order. The two countries have made countless contributions to the war, and it is finally their turn to eat meat. It is said to be preparations, but in fact there is no need to prepare anything at all. The three of them, after taking the bank notes, they each took a fast horse 553 and left the capital directly for Daliang. When Xia Xinran returned to Qinhu office, she found that Xiao Wuji and the others had already left, and she was very angry and depressed. "Drive! Drive! Drive!" Xiao Wuji and the other two people galloped wildly on the official road, trampling their horses' hooves and kicking up rolling yellow sand. Pedestrians on the official road saw the menacing appearance of Xiao Wuji and the other three people, and immediately ran to the side of the road to hide. Soon, Xiao Wuji and the other three people disappeared on the horizon of the official road. On the other side, Xiao Wuji's heavenly incarnation came to the 8th-story pagoda of Wanhua Villa and met Xiao Tian's. "Uncle, I have already left Jinling City and rushed to Daliang. You must also set off on the road as soon as possible." Xiao Wuji looked at Xiao Tian's and said. Xiao Tian's said excitedly, "Okay, I'll leave immediately too. I have ordered the killers from Kishalu to sneak into Daliang in batches. When you arrive at Daliang and go to the capital, they will be in place, waiting for orders. So the best." Xiao Wuji nodded slightly, and then asked, "How are they practicing the 24 formations of dies?" Xiao Tian's shook his head slightly and said with some regret, "The 24 formations of dies are profound, and infinitely powerful. The people under my command have only been practicing for a short time. Their current state is at best just getting started, and they are still unable to use all the formations. Power." Xiao Wuji said, "Forget it, just use it. By the time they finish practicing, the daylily will be cold." Xiao Tian's nodded slightly to express his understanding. Sometimes, it is not good for martial arts to be too profound, because it is too difficult to get started. But neither Xiao Wuji nor Xiao Tian's want to wait. They both want to destroy the Xiao royal family as soon as possible and avenge what happened 62 years ago. Revenge of genocide. Especially Xiao Tian's, who has waited for 62 years, more than 20,000 brothers day and night. He really doesn't want to wait for a minute. By the way, this time I also recruited a group of martial arts masters in your name to help us. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 362. Xiao Tian's looked at Xiao Wuji and said, "With their help, I think it will be much easier for us. I have to say that the appeal of masters of harmony between man and nature is really strong. I just secretly spread the word, and many killers from the outer gate of Kishalu went crazy." Xiao Wuji said calmly, "Every bustle in the world is for benefit, and all the hustle and bustle in the world is for benefit. These killers who come for profit cannot be completely trusted. But being cannon fodder is more than enough." Xiao Tian's nodded and said, "Don't worry about this, I have not lived in vain for more than 80 years. Xiao Wuji said, "Where are King Mangxiang and Han Rufeng, have these two ever been honest?" Xiao Tian said with a smile, "With your life and death talisman under threat, and the threats from the masters of heaven and man, the two of them are very honest. I have asked the two of them to lead the team to Daliang, and they must have entered Daliang at this time." Xiao Wuji nodded slightly, "This is the best. Xiao Tian's, King Mangxiang, Han Rufeng, plus the master of Kishalu Tianqian Tower who Xiao Tian's had recruited a long time ago. Xiao Wuji now has a total of 4 grandmasters. 4 grandmasters are already a lot after all. Xiao Tian's is a grandmaster. The pinnacle expert has great combat power. After Daliang Feiyu King Xiao Feng and Kasidagarba were killed by Xiao Wuji, no one in the Daliang Xiao royal family except Seven Swords King Xiao Hung was Xiao Tian's opponent. An ordinary great master, Xiao Tian's can kill him with one palm. Even if there is a fight in the future and there is a lack of troops, Xiao Wuji can use the full-level soul transfer method to control the enemy's Grand Master for his own benefit. There are tens of thousands of killers on the surface, plus Xiao Wuji's series of secret tricks. This act of revenge will definitely win the battle. Phew. Xiao Wuji's body flashed and disappeared in the 8-story pagoda. The next second, Xiao Wuji came to the capital of Daliang. Xiao Wuji's heavenly incarnation lurked in Shangjing City, waiting for him to come here to join him. On the other hand, Xiao Tian's also led the troops from Jinling City to Daliang to join Xiao Wuji. 62 years later, Yuping Wang Xiao, the final revenge of the clan has finally begun. Drive! 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 Above the official road, 3 sweat-blooded horses were galloping rapidly, with flying dust behind them. These 3 people were clearly Xiao Wuji, Shuehua, and Song Liman. After the 3 people left Jinling City, they did not stop for a moment. He rushed to the south as quickly as possible for several days. Boom! Just at this moment, there was a loud roar in the sky. Xiao Wuji looked up at the sky and saw dark clouds sweeping across the sky. The deep clouds covered the sky and blocked the sun, as if they were suspended in the sky. The mountains. Black clouds are pressing down on the city, threatening to destroy it. The air is so dull that it makes one's heart palpitate. Ha! A bolt of lightning pierces the sky, tearing apart the deep clouds, spanning dozens of miles across the sky. Then there is a roar of thunder, as if the sky is exploding. God's expression changes at every turn. The sun was shining brightly and the sky was clear one moment, but now it's going to rain heavily. Xiao Wuji swung the riding whip fiercely and slapped the horse's butt hard, causing the sweaty crotch and the speed of the BMW to increase again. Hurry, it's going to rain soon, go to the front and see if there is any shelter from the rain. As soon as Xiao Wuji finished speaking, a heavy rain poured down from the sky. Raindrops as big as soybeans fell heavily, enough to make a person's scalp numb. This kind of sudden rain is usually a heavy rain, which is totally unreasonable. The rain is very strong. Xiao Wuji had the true essence to protect his body, so he was fine. But Shuehua and Song Liman were unlucky. In the blink of an eye, they were soaked in the rain. Of course they could use the innate true essence to block the rain, but the warrior's true energy is only so much. It is too luxurious to use it to keep out the rain. They will not choose such a stupid approach. Damn, this rain is too heavy. Has my butt been leaked? Underscore. Song Liman didn't say anything else. Apparently he felt disgusted himself. The 3 of them rode wildly and finally found a ruined temple to take shelter from the rain. Whenever there is a heavy rain on the way, there will inevitably be a ruined temple to provide shelter from the wind and rain. This seems to be what will happen when thousands of warriors travel the world. Sir, there is no one in the temple. Shuehua and Song Liman checked around and confirmed that no one was in the ruined temple, so they cleaned up the ruined temple and cleared a clean area for rest. After lighting the fire, they sat cross-legged and moved. The kung fu dissipated the cold air in the body and dried the clothes at the same time. The place where Xiao Wuji is now is Dingzhou, which is not far from Black Eagle City in the south and can be reached in just a few days. Wow! Suddenly, Xiao Wuji heard a sound of horse hoofbeats. There was a sound of neighing. Judging from the sound of horse hooves, no less than 10 people were coming, and there was a sound coming from afar. Damn, our luck is really bad. We encountered such a heavy rain. It's really unlucky. Okay, third brother, Stop complaining. There is a ruined temple ahead. Let's hide there first. It's still early now, it doesn't matter if we are a few days late. That is, the two countries said they were going to war, but in fact it was still very early. We don't need to be so anxious. King Huainan's recruitment meeting will not end until the war begins, so we have plenty of time. A few people were talking and walking, and suddenly a burst of exclamation came, "Big brother and second brother, look, there are horses here, and there are people in the temple. 3 horses, presumably 3 people. Let's go in and take a look, if you can, don't do anything." The sound is getting closer and closer, and they are outside the ruined temple. In the temple, Shuehua and Song Liman have stopped exercising to ward off the cold. Their palms are already on the hilts of their swords, ready to take action at any time. Walking around the world, any disagreement will cause trouble. Fighting, blood splattering 3 feet often happens. So we must be vigilant. We must be on guard against others. I don't know how many people lose their lives every year because of carelessness. Bang! A puff of water vapor breaks into the door, and several gangsters wearing bamboo hats and tattered linen clothes walked into the ruined temple one after another. They immediately saw Shuehua and Song Liman standing there, and also saw Xiao Wuji sitting cross-legged behind them. Xiao Wuji sitting calmly, without even looking at them from beginning to end, he was very arrogant. The dozen or so big men also looked wary, with their hands on the handles of their knives. The middle-aged man at the head's pupils shrank instantly after seeing Xiao Wuji. Then he saw the saber on Xiao Wuji's waist, and a look of fear flashed in his eyes. Obviously, he recognized Xiao Wuji's face and Xiao Wuji's snow-drinking sword. The name of a person, the shadow of a tree. After recognizing Xiao Wuji, the boss only had endless fear in his heart. In the ruined temple, 2 groups of people were confronting each other, with 3 people on one side and more than a dozen people on the other side. It seemed that they would fight at any time, with blood splattering 3 feet away. "Hey, you guys." Just as a big man wanted to speak, the middle-aged man at the head raised his hand and interrupted. He looked at Xiao Wuji, clasped his fists and said respectfully, "I don't know that there is someone in the temple, who disturbed the senior's rest. I hope you will forgive me, and I will leave immediately." After saying that, he said to the people behind him, "Let's go, we will leave immediately, let's go." It was pouring rain outside the door, and they were all soaked in the rain. Finally, they found a dilapidated temple to shelter from the heavy rain, and more than a dozen big men didn't want to leave. The man named Lao San wanted to speak, but Wash gave him a fierce look. Go now, go now." The boss's expression was extremely solemn, and he couldn't tell whether it was rain or sweat. But the dozen big men all saw the fear in the boss's eyes. They had never seen their boss look so panicked, so they all, not daring to speak, they subconsciously followed the boss's orders and left with him. They had followed the boss around the world for many years, and knew that the boss would not make mistakes. Now that they are so scared, it is obvious that they have discovered something that they have not discovered. The 3 people in the ruined temple, they can't afford it, etc. Just when the boss turned to leave, Xiao Wuji spoke. As soon as the voice came out, the boss's body suddenly stiffened in place. A cold air burst out from his heels and went straight to the back of his head, making his scalp numb. He turned his head stiffly, looking at Xiao Wuji. He laughed dryly and said, "I wonder what your instructions are, senior." Xiao Wuji said expressionlessly, "You just said that the king of Huainan is recruiting troops. What is going on?" Seeing that Xiao Wuji was just asking him a question, the boss felt a little at ease. He took a deep breath and replied, "Some time ago, the king of Huainan issued a recruitment order in nearby states to summon all the martial arts warriors to serve the country. Jianghu warriors do not need to become a formal army, nor do they need to obey military orders. They only need to sneak into Daliang to inquire about information and get back valuable information, and then they can get a heavy reward from the king of Huainan. As soon as this news came out, warriors from several nearby states were moved and rushed to Black Eagle City to recruit soldiers. We are one of them. After the boss finished speaking, Xiao Wuji remained expressionless and calm. After a long time, he heard Xiao Wuji say, "Okay, let's go." "Yes, thank you, senior." The boss was granted amnesty. He bowed respectfully to Xiao Wuji with clasped fists, then turned around and hurried away with a dozen big men. "Quick, quick, let's leave now." The boss got on his horse and galloped wildly, not wanting to stay near the ruined temple for a moment. He turned around and glanced at the ruined temple in fear, as if Xiao Wuji in the ruined temple was some kind of savage beast. A group of more than a dozen people rushed as fast as possible. After running a few kilometers, the third child behind him asked, "Boss, what happened just now? Why should we leave?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 363. The brothers are all soaked in the rain. It would be great to take shelter from the rain in the ruined temple and warm up by the fire. Why do we have to rush on the road in the rain? Yes, boss, what exactly did you find? Why so scared? Are the young people in the ruined temple very powerful? Even if he is very powerful, there are only 3 of us, but there are more than a dozen of us. Besides, the ruined temple is so big. We can hide from the rain with them. Why should we leave? A dozen big men talked to each other and expressed their dissatisfaction. The boss looked back at the dozen people and said, "Do you know who the people in the ruined temple are?" More than a dozen people shook their heads at the same time, and the most clueless Lao San said casually, "Isn't he just a young man? Could it be that he is a genius on the Qianlong list? Even if he is a genius on the Qianlong list, are so many of us still afraid of him?" That's it. Others also agreed. The boss shook his head and said, "If you knew who he was, you wouldn't have the guts to say such things." Facing the gazes of more than a dozen people, the boss said word by word, "The young man in the temple just now is Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji." As soon as these 3 words came out, a dozen big men's eyes widened instantly. The third child said with frightened eyes, "Yes, yes, that's Xiao Wuji." The boss sighed, "Is there a second Xiao Wuji in this world? The world is so big, and there are many people with the same name and surname. There is definitely more than one person named Xiao Wuji in the world. But there is only one Xiao Wuji who can make their boss so scared. Xiao Wuji, the royal guard of Qinhu, the 13th Taibao of the Great Zhou dynasty. Great Zhou dynasty. The emperor personally proclaimed the number 1 genius of the Great Zhou dynasty, and the peerless master ranked 36th on the heavenly ranking. Xiao Wuji shocked the world with his cruelty and bloodthirsty. Since his debut, he has harvested countless undead souls under the sword of Shuiyin. He was when Xiao Wuji targeted 003, he would often massacre the whole family and massacre the sect. The Evil Blood sect and the Destiny sect were both attacked by Xiao Wuji. The 2 sects were blood-bathed, and nearly 10,000 people were ruthlessly slaughtered by Xiao Wuji. By Xiao Wuji there are countless masters who have been killed by Wuji. Righteous Fixianman Sword Sect, Dibang Suihong II, Matanga, Grand Master Master Yin Luguai, etc. There are too many people, and the results are so terrifying that they are even listed on the Tianji list. No more. In short, in the eyes of the Jianghu people of Dazhu, Xiao Wuji is a complete murderer. Hearing his name will make him frightened, and seeing his actions will scatter his soul. The third person trembled and asked, "Boss, you are not wrong, are you? Xiao Wuji was far away in Jinling City, how could he appear here?" The boss said with a solemn expression, "I once took a look at Xiao Wuji from a distance in Jinling City. I will never forget his face in my life, so I will never mistake him. Besides, Xiao Wuji still had the snow-drinking sword hanging on his waist. It was an unrivaled psychic weapon, so there was absolutely no way he could be wrong. Xiao Wuji is famous all over the world, and Xiao Wuji's sword is naturally famous all over the world. The snow-drinking Kwangdao is a psychic magic weapon. With one strike of the sword, the wind and snow wither, everything freezes, killing people without blood, making countless warriors in the rivers and lakes frightened. On the rivers and lakes, all the swordsmen in the army set Xiao Wuji as their benchmark, hoping that one day their swordsmanship would be comparable to Xiao Wuji's. Unfortunately, no one can catch up with Xiao Wuji now. After some explanations from the boss, more than a dozen people finally knew why their swordsmanship the boss was so scared. It turned out that the man was the famous Xiao Wuji. No wonder the boss did not dare to stay in the ruined temple for a moment and wanted to take them away in a hurry. If it were them, they would not dare to fight Xiao Wuji. The gods are in the same room. Besides, Xiao Wuji is a member of the Jinyue Qinhu. He went from Jinling City to the southern border of the Great Zhou dynasty and must have an important mission. The Jinyue's tasks are top secret and cannot be known to outsiders. If Xiao Wuji wants to keep the secret, kill them all, and then they will have no place to cry. In order to save their lives, more than a dozen people swung their whips and whipped the horses' butts wildly, and galloped away from the area as fast as possible. They even changed their route midway. They dare not go to Black Eagle City in the south. Just now Xiao Wuji asked about King Huainan, and it was obvious that he was also going to Black Eagle City. They didn't want to run into this murderous god again. "Sir, don't you need to keep them?" In the ruined temple, Shuihua looked at the direction where more than a dozen people were leaving and asked. "No need, they are just a group of minor characters, there is no point in staying." Xiao Wuji shook his head and said. His mind is now on King Huainan recruiting troops. Although King Huainan is the lord of the southern territory and the commander of the Black Eagle army, according to the laws of the Great Zhou dynasty, he has no right to recruit troops. Only the emperor has the right to recruit troops. Only after the decree was issued, he was qualified to recruit troops to expand the army. If the troops in the hands of King Huainan were not enough, the emperor would send reinforcements to support him. King Huainan recruited troops independently, which obviously violated the laws of the Zhou dynasty. But according to the person just now, King Huainan recruited Jianghu. The masters did not gather them into an army, but just let them sneak into Daliang to collect information and win people's hearts with generous rewards. This was obviously a loophole in the law. It seemed to be a violation of the court's laws, but in fact it was not. Xia Yuanxiang, the king of Huainan, was a veteran on the battlefield and worthy of being the master of the southern territory. This move was clever. Xiao Wuji thought for a while and quickly understood Xia Yuanxiang's intention. Although the two countries have not officially started war, it is long before the national war breaks out. According to Jin Yiwei's intelligence, the southern garrison is being transferred back, and the troops have begun to become empty. The current situation is that Dazhu takes the initiative, and Daliang can only passively fight. In this situation, when and how to start the war are all decided by the king of Huainan. The target of sending troops to explore the news is too big, and sending warriors to do it is too big. When he probed for information, his target was much smaller. Moreover, the Jianghu warriors were not his soldiers. Even if all of them died, King Huainan would not feel bad. To put it bluntly, King Huainan recruited not soldiers, but cannon fodder. What he paid was nothing more than it's just a little money. And as long as you can invade the territory of Daliang, you can plunder a lot of gold and silver. What you pay now will be earned back thousands of times in the future. What an old fox! A sneer appeared at the corner of Xiao Wuji's mouth, and he thought to himself. Boom! Outside the ruined temple, heavy rain poured down, high-altitude dark clouds swept across, and lightning and thunder thundered. This heavy rain is coming fiercely. It rained continuously for a day and night before finally stopping. Xiao Wuji and the others got back on the road and arrived at Black Eagle City a few days later. This was the second time for Xiao Wuji and the others to come to Black Eagle City, so they were familiar with the roads. "Sir, do you want to go to Huainan Palace? With the help of King Huainan, it will be easier for us to sneak into Daliang," Shuihua said behind Xiao Wuji. Now that the two countries are about to go to war, the border has long been blocked. It is not easy to enter Daliang. The king of Huainan is the lord of the southern border and knows Daliang very well. With his help, it is indeed necessary to be more careful. Simple. It's just that Xiao Wuji rejected Shuihua's proposal. Xiao Wuji shook his head slightly and said, "No need, Jin Yiwei has his own special route into Liang. Let's go find Anzi." The Jin Yiwei intelligence network is spread all over the world, and a lot of information is transmitted back and forth between Dazhu and Daliang. Naturally, there are Jin Yiwei's own routes. Such routes are built by countless Jin Yiwei who have sacrificed their lives, and every one of them is top secret. Even if the border between the two countries is closed, and these routes are unobstructed, for a small group of 3 people like Xiao Wuji, it will undoubtedly be safer and more secretive to enter Daliang through this route. Soon, Xiao Wuji found a hotel in a remote area of the south city of Black Eagle City. Sesame oil shop. Xiao Wuji entered the sesame oil shop and said to the shopkeeper, "Shopkeeper, buy sesame oil. The best sesame oil will be weighed to me by 9 pounds and 9 taels." When the shopkeeper heard this, his pupils shrank slightly, and he smiled dryly and said, "I'm sorry, sir, the best sesame oil in the shop is almost sold out, and now there are only 3 kilograms and 6 taels left." Xiao Wuji said expressionlessly, "Can't you think of a way? I have plenty of money and am willing to pay twice the price." While speaking, Xiao Wuji took out the Jin Yiwei token and passed it in front of the shopkeeper's eyes. Although it was only for a moment, the shopkeeper still saw the style of the token clearly. The 3 characters Xiao Wuji were deeply engraved in his mind. "I couldn't forget it for a long time." The shopkeeper scratched his head and said, "Since the guest officer said so, please come with me, and we will discuss it in the back." After saying a set of cuts, the shopkeeper led Xiao Wuji and the others into the backyard of the sesame oil shop. The 2 young men in the sesame oil shop were very discerning. One walked outside the shop and observed the passers-by outside. The other took the shopkeeper's place. "Help him receive the guests and make sure he doesn't look strange. It's impossible to close the door suddenly, as that will only reveal bigger flaws." Obviously, this sesame oil shop is the stronghold of Jin Yiwei in Black Eagle City. The shopkeeper and the waiter of the sesame oil shop, they were all Jin Yiwei. When a few people came to the backyard, the owner of the sesame oil shop quickly knelt on the ground and bowed respectfully to Xiao Wuji. "Xiao Tian, 100 households in Black Eagle City, see the 13 Taibao. Get up." Xiao Wuji said lightly. "Thanks Taibao." The shopkeeper stood up respectfully, keeping his head lowered, not daring to look directly at Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji, the 13th Taibao of the Jin Yiwei, has a fierce reputation throughout the world. As long as he is a Jin Yiwei, there is no one who does not know about it. The shopkeeper did not expect that one day he would being able to see this legendary figure of Jin Yiwei with his own eyes made him a little excited and frightened. Xiao Wuji looked at the shopkeeper and said with a smile, "Your surname is Xiao too? That's a coincidence. We are from the same family. Maybe we were the same family 500 years ago." Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 364. Xiao Tian said with some fear, "Master Taibao is joking, my subordinates dare not have a relationship with Master Taibao." Although he was frightened, Xiao Tian was somewhat touched by Xiao Wuji's kind attitude. He has received many thousands of households, and those thousands of households relied on their own strength and status to treat him in a bossy and condescending manner. How different is Xiao Wuji, who is so kind and has no airs of the 13 Taibao. Okay, let's get down to business. Xiao Wuji looked at Xiao Tian and said, I have been ordered to go to Daliang, and I want you to help me. Xiao Tian looked solemn and said, don't worry, Taibao Lord, everything has been prepared, and you can enter Daliang tonight. Xiao Tian was ordered to lurk in Black Eagle City. In addition to transmitting intelligence from the two countries, the most important task was to escort the Jinyaiwei personnel into Daliang. Now that the two countries are about to go to war, he does not dare to be careless. All actions have been prepared. No matter who comes, arrangements can be made as soon as possible. In this way, Xiao Wuji patiently waited for the night to fall in the sesame oil shop. At the same time, King Huainan also received the news that Xiao Wuji and the others entered Black Eagle City. Black Eagle the city is the territory of King Huainan, and there are countless spies of King Huainan in the entire city. Now that the situation is serious, these spies' control over Black Hawk City is obviously 10 times and 100 times more strict than usual. Although Xiao Wuji's entry into the city is secretive, after all, it is not. It may have been hidden from King Huainan's eyes. In King Huainan's military camp, the commander of the camp, King Huainan, was wearing a four-clawed python robe, looking at the defense map of the two countries' troops in front of him with his hands behind his back. The forces displayed on the surface were marked on the defense map. It was clear. King Huainan looked at the defense map and simulated the upcoming national war in his mind over and over again. The changes that might break out in the war, the route of Zhou's troops, how to attack the city, how to fight back the enemy in Liang, the possible tactics and tactics are all in the mind of King Huainan. Before every war begins, King Huainan will simulate the war as it is now to ensure that everything will be flawless and the final victory can be achieved after the war starts. At this moment, a soldier hurriedly entered the camp, came behind King Huainan, and whispered a few words in his ear. This soldier did not need to announce when he entered the camp, let alone salute, and could approach King Huainan directly. This shows that King Huainan has great regard for him. Trust. This soldier is King Huainan's personal guard. He is both his bodyguard and his sworn soldier. He is extremely loyal to King Huainan. As long as King Huainan gives an order, his guards will fight to the death and kill the enemy bravely. Even if King Huainan wants them to commit suicide, they will not hesitate at all. The Black Eagle army is nominally subordinate to the Emperor of Zhou dynasty, but these guards are only loyal to King Huainan. After listening to the report of the guards, King Huainan's eyes flickered a few times. Xiao Wuji actually came to Black Eagle City again. It seems that Yuan Xiong wants him to take over the Daliang intelligence network to prepare for the next national war. It seems that the imperial brother is bound to win this battle. The king of Huainan knows Xiao Wuji's strength and ability. He has to admit that although Xiao Wuji is young, his methods are sophisticated, his mind is deep, and he is decisive in killing. He is a first-class talent. Even Xiao Wuji has been sent here, which shows that Yuan Xiong's determination also confirmed Emperor Jingtai's determination from the side. Your Majesty, do you want to send someone to contact Xiao Wuji? Kono asked in a low voice. Need not. King. Huainan raised his hand to stop him and said, if you do more, you will make more mistakes. If you do less, you will make fewer mistakes. It's hard to understand Xiao Wuji's thoughts. Now is not the best time to contact him. Just wait, there will be a chance sooner or later in the future. You go down first. Everyone in the sesame oil shop has withdrawn. Xiao Wuji is extremely powerful. You can't hide it in front of him. Yes, I will obey your orders. The guards said respectfully, turned and left the camp. After the guards left, King Huainan returned his attention to the defense maps of the two countries. As for Xiao Wuji, he had already put it aside. King Huainan's thoughts are unpredictable, and no one can predict them. I don't know what he was thinking. In the backyard of the sesame oil shop, Xiao Wuji suddenly flashed his eyes and looked in a direction to the left. There were walls and nothing there. But what Xiao Wuji was looking at was what was behind the walls. People. Are you finally leaving? In Xiao Wuji's perception, several suspicious people around the sesame oil store all left at the same time. Although there was no direct contact, Xiao Wuji knew that those people were from the king of Huainan. The sesame oil store is a Jinyue stronghold. It seems secret, but in fact it is impossible to hide it from King Huainan. The entire Black Eagle prestige is the territory of King Huainan. Here, nothing can be hidden from King Huainan's eyes. King Huainan has never had contact with the sesame oil shop. I have always pretended not to know the existence of the sesame oil shop. The sesame oil shop has never been in contact with the Huainan king, and the two parties have a tacit understanding. Time passes quickly, the sun sets in the west, and the night falls. Before the gate of Black Eagle City closes, Xiao Wuji the people had already left the city. Under the leadership of Xiao Tian, Xiao Wuji and the others embarked on a secret route. Mr. Tebeo, as long as you keep going forward, you will be able to enter the beam. Someone will pick you up when the time comes. Xiao Tian said to Xiao Wuji. I know, please go back. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. Yes, my subordinate resigned. Xiao Tian bowed respectfully, turned around and left silently. Xiao Wuji and the others rode their horses on the secret path and went straight into the hinterland of Daliang. After traveling all night, Xiao Wuji and the others set foot on Daliang in the early morning of the next day. The country. On a cliff, Xiao Wuji stood on horseback. Looking back, he saw a magnificent city sitting there, like a giant beast crawling on the ground. That was Daliang Chenzi City. It means long-term peace and stability. Chenzi City and Black Eagle City are far away from each other, and they are each other's national gateway. By taking a detour through the path, Xiao Wuji successfully broke through the blockade of Chenzi City and went around to the back. Of course, this path is very dangerous and remote. Can only accommodate a small number of people to pass through, and the army cannot march. If this road is slightly wider, it can provide the army with an opportunity to sneak around and attack. After passing Chenzi City, there is no danger to defend the 6 states in Daliang. Xiao Wuji and his party of 3, there is no need to be secretive anymore, and you can walk freely in broad daylight. Although the cities along the way have to check the road signs, Xiao Tian has been prepared. The road signs he forged are exactly the same as those made by Daliang, and there are no flaws at all besides. Even if there is no road guide. 0 request for flowers. With the strength of Xiao Wuji and the other 3, they can reach Shangjing City unimpeded. Daliang is the same as Dazhu. The style of martial arts is very strong. When walking on the street, you will see warriors wearing swords from time to time. Moreover, the public security in Daliang is worse than that of Dazhu. Warriors violating prohibitions often happen, and the frequency is higher than that of Dazhu. Xiao Wuji witnessed it with his own eyes. I saw 2 Jianghu warriors fighting each other with swords over a disagreement. In the end, one died and the other was injured. The surviving people plundered all the property of the deceased and left in a big way. The people from the government arrived late and did not dare to pursue the murderer. They only dared to collect the body of the deceased hastily. Although the people around were frightened, they soon returned to normal, and they were obviously used to it. Literature uses Confucianism to disrupt the law, and chivalrous people use martial arts to violate the law. No matter which dynasty, generation, or country, it is the same. Xiao Wuji sighed silently, and quickly took Shuihua and Song Liman back on the road. Finally, a month later, Xiao Wuji and the others arrived outside Shangjing City. On a high slope, Xiao Wuji and 3 others stood on horseback, looking at the capital city from a distance. I saw that outside the capital city there were densely decorated banners and numerous troops. Countless military camps are arranged neatly, almost as far as the eye can see. Compared with what Xiao Wuji saw last time, there were several times more tents outside Shangjing city. Obviously, the vassal kings from all over the country have led their armies to Shangjing city. How many soldiers and horses are there? Shuehua and Song Liman couldn't help but take a breath. They and Xiao Wuji had entered the military camp and had seen the scene of King Huainan convening the army. When they saw the 100,000 black eagles lining up to form an army, the two of them had already. It was extremely shocking. However, compared with what we see now, the original 100,000 Black Hawk army was really insignificant. Crazy, really crazy. Daliang has gathered all the troops in the country together, right? Shuet. Hua murmured to himself, his forehead already covered with cold sweat. Song Liman also looked pale. There are at least 500,000 troops here, no, 600,000, 700,000, or even more. In order to deal with Xiao Zhantian alone, so many troops should be mobilized. The master of the unity of man and nature is truly terrifying. Shuehua and Song Liman have long heard how powerful the heavenly masters are. They can defeat an enemy country and one person can be as powerful as 1,000,000 troops. But they never knew what that concept was before. But now they know. There are nearly 1,000,000 troops in front of us, all designed to deal with Xiao Zhantian. The strength of a country is gathered just to kill one person. If this is not considered an enemy country, what is? It is indeed the realm that millions of warriors in the world dream of. If I can reach this realm one day, I will be willing to die immediately. Underscore. 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 Without saying a word, he looked at the millions of troops in the distance with an expressionless look, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. No matter how many ants there are, they are still ants after all. It can kill an elephant, but it is impossible to kill an elephant. Death Dragon. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 365. Although Daliang summoned 1,000,000 troops to deal with him, Xiao Wuji was not afraid at all. He has only one real enemy, and that is Gangxiang of Bodhi Temple. As long as he can kill Gangxiang, no one can stop Daliang from his path of revenge. As long as Xiao Wuji kills all the Xiao royal family in Daliang, then, these millions of troops will be Xiao Wuji's trophies. Shuehua, send the signal and ask the people from Jinyue to pick us up. Xiao Wuji said lightly. Yes. Underscore. Underscore. Underscore, flew into Shangjing city. Daliang Shangjing city, in the imperial palace. A large hall was filled with fine wine and delicacies. A dignified superior was having a banquet. They were all the vassal kings of Daliang, and they all had noble status. The power is overwhelming. At the banquet, people exchanged glasses of wine and exchanged glasses. There were dancers dancing and posing in the middle aisle of the palace. Some vassal kings dismissed this and concentrated on drinking and eating meat. From time to time, they glanced towards the top of the hall, their eyes 337 is hot. There are vassal kings with lustful eyes, staring at the dancing dancer, waving their index fingers, and they are ready to enjoy it after the banquet. But while they are looking at the dancer, they will also look at it from time to time. Go to the top of the main hall. There is a dragon chair there, but there is no one on the dragon chair at the moment. It is empty. Everyone knows that Liang Xiaoduo is dead. Logically speaking, after Xiaoduo dies, the person who is qualified to succeed the throne should be Xiaoduo's son. Although many of Xiaoduo's sons were killed by Xiao Zhantian, there are still 4 or 5 who are still alive and are qualified to succeed to the throne. But as we all know, Xiao begged for Xiao Zhantian's mercy before his death. Just to live an ignoble existence. He did not hesitate to insult the Xiao royal family and lost the face of the Xiao royal family. Such a person is not worthy of being the emperor of Liang, and his descendants are not worthy of being the emperor of Liang. Xiao Hung, the Seven Sword King, was angry and killed Xiao Duo's wives and concubines. All the sons, daughters, and grandchildren were killed, completely wiping out the royal bloodline of Xiao Duo. Now that the throne is vacant, they, the vassal kings, are all qualified to compete for the supreme position. This time the vassal king led troops to Beijing, except they followed the order of Seven Swords King Xiao Hung to protect Shangjing. They also had another purpose, which was to compete for the throne. When they thought that they might become emperor, many vassal kings felt hot in their hearts. They also looked at other vassal kings with flashes in their eyes. Cold. The emperor is ruthless, and the emperor's family is ruthless. Since ancient times, in order to compete for the supreme position, there have been many cases of brotherhood, father and son killing each other. Although these vassals are all of the same blood, there is no relationship between them. Intimate, but not necessarily. At this moment, they can still drink and eat meat at the same table, because they have the common enemy Xiao Zhantian. Once Xiao Zhantian is successfully eradicated, they will immediately turn against each other and fight for the throne. Kill each other. Just wait, the throne will definitely belong to me in the end. These people must surrender at the feet of this king. It's finally my turn to take the lead. That idiot Xiao Duo died so well. Under the leadership of this king, Daliang will definitely become the strongest country in the world and eventually swallow up the world. Many feudal kings had different thoughts. Even though they were smiling and kind when talking to each other. But in fact, they are all duplicitous and hypocritical people with hidden murderous intentions. Deep in the Forbidden Palace, Seven Swords King Xiao Hung was sitting cross-legged on a futon, doing exercises to heal his injuries. The true essence forms a cocoon of light, wrapping it inside. There were bursts of banging sounds in the light cocoon, as if the heart was beating. After a long time, the light cocoon disappeared. Xiao Hung dissipated his power, groaned, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His face was still as pale as paper, without any trace of blood. Hateful! Xiao Hung cursed in a low voice, with cold eyes and a ferocious face. It has been almost a month since he was seriously injured by Xiao Zhantian. During this time, Xiao Hung has been healing his wounds, and the treasures of heaven and earth hidden in the royal family are not. He knew how much he had eaten, but his injuries still didn't improve at all. As soon as he used his kung fu, the internal organs and muscles in his body hurt like a knife. The palm power and sword energy that Xiao Zhantian left in his body were too much. If it is strong, he can't expel it at all. The palm power and sword energy must be worn away over many years before they are completely worn away. After that, Xiao Hung's injuries will slowly improve. Xiao Hung's current condition is too bad. Even Gang Xiang cannot forcibly expel the palm power and sword energy from his body. Once stimulated by external forces, the palm power and sword energy will riot. Even though he can expel the strange force, Xiao Hung will be injured more and more. Xiao Hung will be injured. Hung only has half a life left now. If the injury gets worse, he will definitely die. If this continues, Xiao Zhantian will come back soon. The more Xiao Hung thinks about it, the more anxious he becomes. He doesn't have any time to waste now. He knows that Xiao Zhantian may make a comeback at any time. Then it will be a catastrophe for his Xiao family. Although there are powerful men from Bodhi Temple to help, but he did not dare to take it lightly. Xiao Hung was not used to putting the chance of survival in the hands of others. Mountains will fall if he relies on them, and he will dry if he relies on water. Only by relying on himself can he succeed once and for all. Bang bang bang. At this moment, the Forbidden Palace, there were footsteps outside, and a soldier pushed open the door and knelt down in front of Xiao Hung. Xiao Hung asked, "How are the kings doing?" The soldier said respectfully, the kings are feasting, singing, and dancing. The soldiers explained the situation of many feudal kings one by one, and Seven Swords King Xiao Hung frowned, and his last face turned completely gloomy. In the face of a powerful enemy, many vassal kings were still in the mood to sing, dance, and be intoxicated. Their eyes were fixed on that chair, and they were still fighting among themselves. They had no intention of joining hands to fight against the powerful enemy. These are useless waste. When did our Xiao family descend to this point? Xiao Hung hated that iron could not become steel. He had just been in seclusion for more than 30 years. After he came out, he suddenly found that he did not understand Daliang. Emperor Xiao Duo of Daliang was a coward who was greedy for life and afraid of death. He was a loser. They are all short-sighted trash. The disaster of annihilation is right in front of them, but these people don't have the slightest sense of crisis. Do they think that with 1,000,000 troops guarding outside the city, they will be safe? When they think of Xiao Zhantian who are about to kill the grandson of a pile of trash, Xiao Hung felt extremely tired and lonely, and felt an unprecedented desolation. There are thousands of children of the Xiao royal family, but there is no one available. He was the only one who supported the huge Xiao royal family. Anger surged up, and Xiao Hung couldn't help but spurt out another mouthful of blood. At this moment, Xiao Hung's healing results in the past month were completely wasted. Your Majesty, are you okay? When the soldier saw Xiao Hung vomiting blood, he immediately panicked and hurriedly stepped forward to help him. Xiao Hung waved his hand and said, "No, I am fine. You pass my king's order and ask all the feudal kings to come to the Forbidden Palace to see me." Xiao Hung's eyes were fierce, full of blood and murderous intent, and he said coldly, "Go and call them now. Anyone who dares to delay will be deprived of his royal status and beheaded on the spot." The soldier was frightened by Xiao Hung's murderous intent. His face turned pale with fear and he broke out in cold sweat. He said tremblingly, "Yes. Yes, I obey." After saying that, the soldiers rolled out of the Forbidden Palace and ran to the main hall to summon the message. At the same time, Xiao Wuji, Shuihua, and Song Liman had successfully sneaked into Shangjing City. In the west city of Shangjing City, Liuguan Courtyard. Here. It is a secret stronghold placed by Jin Yiwei in Shangjing City. Xiao Wuji met Sima Lang, the fourth Taibao, here. 13th brother, this is the first time we meet, and I have admired my name for a long time. In the Liuguang villa, a middle-aged man clasped his fists and laughed at Xiao Wuji. The fourth brother is good and the younger brother is polite. Xiao Wuji smiled and clasped his fists in return, and naturally called fourth brother. Well, he has another brother on his head this time. Who makes him the youngest? Xiao Wuji looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. This is a very elegant man with a handsome appearance. Although he is older, his temperament is more reserved. One glance can tell that this man was a rare handsome man when he was young. Xiao Wuji has long heard that the appearance of Sima Lang, the fourth Taibao, is Jinling City's premier existence made many noble ladies of Jinling secretly admire it when they were young. It is said that in order to snatch Si 3.8 Malang, many noble ladies of Jinling City almost fought regardless of their appearance. They fought for their fathers, their mothers, and their background. To fight for family property. In short, many Jinling noblewomen wanted to marry Sima Lang. In the end, a royal princess took the lead and successfully married Sima Lang as his wife. It was rumored that the second princess of Emperor Jingtai at that time also loved Sima Lang. Lang wanted to marry him, but unfortunately he was rejected by Emperor Jingtai. The Jinyue were the emperor's personal soldiers, and the 13 eunuchs were the emperor's confidants. For this most trusted confidant, Emperor Jingtai could bestow titles, elixirs, and magical secrets, granting glory and wealth, but the only thing that cannot be given is the princess. Because the 13 eunuchs are doing the most dangerous tasks, and one careless move will lead to death. Once the princess is given a marriage, what will happen to the princess after the eunuch dies? Not becoming a widow? In order to prevent this from happening, if Sima Lang marries the princess, he must quit the imperial guard and no longer serve as the Taibao. But in that case, the emperor will lose a right-hand man. And as the fourth Taibao, Sima Lang knows there are many secrets between the emperor and the royal guards, which means that he will never be able to quit the royal guards forever. Therefore, it is impossible for Sima Lang to marry the princess. So in the end, a princess succeeded in taking the throne and brought back the beautiful man. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 366. Xiao Wuji heard Yuan Xiong say that on the day Sima Lang got married, many noble ladies in Jinling City cried their hearts out, and many even wanted to hang themselves from the beam. Many noble ladies have been depressed and sad for a long time. In the end, they have no choice but to choose a house with a man they barely like. In short, when Sima Lang was still in Jinling City, he was the dream lover of countless women and the life and death enemy of countless men. I don't know how many children from famous families gnashed their teeth in hatred for Sima Lang and looked forward to his death day and night. If it weren't for Sima Lang's own strength and the support of the imperial guards and the emperor, he would have died countless times. Later, when Sima Lang was transferred from Jinling to Daliang, the situation began to improve. Xiao Wuji looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and secretly complained that if a man could live like this, his life would be considered worthwhile. Xiao Wuji had to admit that Sima Lang was the only man who could rival him in appearance. Xiao Wuji met Sima Lang at Liuguan courtyard, and successfully took over Jin Yui's intelligence network in Daliang. And all the Jin Yue in Daliang were convinced. Although they were in Daliang and had not returned to Jinling for a long time, they had heard of Xiao Wuji's name. Xiao Wuji's strength and prestige were enough to control everyone. This is also the reason why Yuan Xiong sent Xiao Wuji here. Fourth brother, please explain to me in detail the situation in Shangjing City. In the other courtyard of the Tang dynasty, Xiao Wuji looked at Sima Lang and said. Good 21, now in Beijing. Sima Lang explained the situation in the capital to Xiao Wuji in detail. Xiao Wuji already knew many of them, but there were also some that he didn't know. For example, Bodhi Temple has sent a group of masters to help the Liang court, including many masters, and more than one. However, even Jin Yue has not found out who the specific people are and what their strength is. Xiao Wuji wrote them down one by one, and already had a way to deal with them in his mind. While Xiao Wuji himself was taking control of the Daliang Jinyi guards, Xiao Wuji's heavenly incarnation had already taken action. Call out. In the dark night, a wisp of breeze suddenly appeared and disappeared in an instant. Xiao Wuji's heavenly incarnation came to the suburban woods outside the west gate of Shangjing City. The woods were densely packed with human figures, numbering in the thousands. These people were immediately alert when they saw Xiao Wuji's appearance. When they saw Xiao Wuji's face clearly, they showed awe, knelt down on one knee and saluted, "See you, Your Majesty." Xiao Wuji is now Nangong Ye, Xiao Zhantian. He glanced at everyone indifferently, and said calmly, "Get up." "Thank you, Lord." Everyone responded in unison. These people are all dead warrior killers raised by Xiao Tian's, and they are also Xiao Tian's most trusted subordinates. They have also practiced the 24 formations of Dais and are the elite killers of Kishalu. Where is Xiao Tian's? Why aren't you here? Xiao Wuji looked around and asked. Only Xiao Kisha was the only one who knew the true relationship between Xiao Tian's and Xiao Wuji. Everyone else only knew that Xiao Zhantian was Xiao Tian's leader, that's all. A killer stepped forward and replied, "The original poster went to the capital to investigate the situation, and I will be back soon." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Wuji heard the sound of breaking wind in his ears. The black shadow flashed, and Xiao Tian's appeared in front of Xiao Wuji. Cut the sky? You came. Xiao Tian said with a smile. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly and said yes. Xiao Tian asked Zhan Tian, how do we enter the city? Xiao Wuji said, I have prepared everything, you just need to follow me. After that, Xiao Wuji led everyone to the capital in the dark night. In front of Zhan Tian is the city wall, which is heavily guarded. Xiao Tian said. Many killers behind him also became nervous. There were so many of them that they couldn't avoid being exposed even in the dark. Xiao Wuji said expressionlessly, no need to stop, just follow me. Xiao Tian no longer doubted, nodded slightly, and continued moving forward with everyone, finally stopping in front of the city wall. Strangely enough, they really didn't encounter any ambush along the way. The city wall was obviously heavily guarded, but no one noticed their arrival. Want to climb over the wall and enter the city? Xiao Tian's asked. Xiao Wuji shook his head slightly, no, let's take the secret path. As soon as he finished speaking, the land under the city wall suddenly opened an entrance, and underneath was a tunnel. A man in black walked out of the tunnel, came to Xiao Wuji, knelt down respectfully and saluted, I see you, master. Well, get up. Xiao Wuji said lightly. Thank you, master. Please come with me. Led by the man in black, everyone entered the underground secret passage and successfully entered Shangjing City through the secret passage. The entrance and exit was a large house, which served as a shelter for Xiao Tian's and others. Wuji, what on earth is going on? When everyone retreated, Xiao Tian's asked. There is a tunnel in the lower secret area of the city. This is simply impossible. Digging a tunnel will definitely make noise. It is impossible to dig a tunnel directly into the city under the nose of the army. It's possible. Also, more than 1,000 of them entered the city, and the soldiers on the city gate turned a blind eye. This is also strange. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, as long as they are all my people, everything will be reasonable. What? They are your people? Xiao Tian's was shocked when he heard this. Xiao Wuji smiled and said nothing. He used the full-level soul transfer method to control many civil and military ministers in Daliang, as well as military lieutenants and generals. The truth is that Xiao Wuji asked them to dig out the secrets in the past month. Come out. The soldiers guarding the city gate tower are all his people, so naturally they won't talk much. The Xiao royal family thought that by sending a large army to guard Shangjing City, it would be airtight. Little did they know that the entire Shangjing City had already been infiltrated by Xiao Wuji. It is riddled with holes. There are so many secrets in Daliang that even Xiao Wuji himself can hardly remember them clearly. Okay, great. Xiao Tian's became even more excited after listening to Xiao Wuji's detailed explanation. Xiao Wuji said, next, you will use the tunnel to connect Mangxiangqing, Han Rufeng, and others to the city. As for the Jianghu killers you find, let them stay outside the city and assassinate the lords and generals in various places. Xiao Tian's nodded and said, I understand. A cold light flashed in Xiao Wuji's eyes, and he said coldly, when everyone arrives, it will be the day when the Xiao royal family will be exterminated. Xiao Tian's clenched his fists, and murderous aura erupted from his body. After 62 years, the blood debt owed by the Xiao royal family has finally come to be repaid. Time passed by, and another half a month passed quietly. At the end of the day, the sunset set as usual. However, at a moment when no one was paying attention, a flying star pierced the sky and set from the southern horizon. During the day flying star, there must be chaos. Very few people saw this scene, and even fewer people knew its deeper meaning. After the flying star fell, the clouds in the sky surged, and in an instant, the sky was filled with rays of light. The white clouds turned golden, and then turned into yellow, and finally turned completely into blood red. Large swathes of flaming clouds appeared in the sky, stretching between the north and the south, like a huge abyss, dividing the entire sky into two halves. At this moment, all living beings in the world can see it as long as they raise their heads. The terrifying scene above our heads. Especially in Daliang, the burning clouds all over the sky are even more terrifying. The layers of burning clouds are stacked on top of each other, and they actually transform into many strange creatures. Some look like fierce tigers, some look like fire phoenixes, and some like real dragons, biting each other, as if they were fighting fiercely. The flaming clouds seem to be dyed red by the blood of these strange beasts. Many warriors in Daliang looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky above their heads, all with solemn expressions. The ignorant people even more so, feeling frightened, they ran home one after another and stayed behind closed doors. Some timid people thought that God was angry, so they knelt down and kowtowed, begging God for mercy. As we all know, if there are stars flying in the day and strange phenomena appearing in the sky, they will surely there is a monster. The old man Tianji, who was far away in Jinling city, pushed away the four courtesan in his arms at this moment and asked them to leave the private room. He came to the window, looked at the vision in the sky with a solemn face, and sighed slightly. The day finally came. Old man Tianji's pupils became pure white and colorless, but suddenly the pure white pupils seemed to be dyed red with blood. Through the pupils, you could see a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. While countless corpses were scattered around, countless undead were wailing and roaring. Old man Tianji seemed to have seen the future, but also seemed to see nothing. He dispersed the Tianji technique, leaving a helpless Zai. At the back of Chixia mountain of Daemon, Xiaoazai, the ancestor of Daemon, looked at the blood-red sky, with countless swords and sword shadows appearing in his eyes. He pinched his fingers to calculate, his brows were furrowed, and the brows squeezed together seemed to be able to break a sword. After a long time, Xiaoazai also sighed, "Oh, God's will, it is God's will. God's will is beyond words, so I'd better stop meddling in other people's business." After saying that, Xiaoazai turned around and returned to his thatched house. The wooden door was closed tightly, and he could not get out. The demon sect, the Blackbird Cave, is located deep in the mountain. Ripples appeared in the void, white light flashed, and a figure appeared out of thin air. This person, it was Shang Guan'ao, Suanzun of the demon sect. Shang Guan'ao raised his head and looked up at the sky with a solemn expression. He did not know the secrets of heaven or sentient beings. He just had a whim and felt that the world was about to undergo a great change. And the great change started from the south. Combining the celestial phenomena and the current world situation, Shang Guan'ao quickly thought of the threat Daliang was facing now. It seems that the Battle of Daliang is about to break out. Xiao Zhantian, whether you live or die depends on this battle. A hint of murderous intent flashed in Shang Guan'ao's eyes, and then the incarnation completely disappeared without a trace. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 367. A strange phenomenon occurs in the sky, and all the masters of the unity of heaven and man in the world react on a whim. They could all feel an invisible aura of swordsmanship coming from the southern sky. But they all chose not to interfere. It's none of your business, just hang it up high. Although masters of the unity of man and nature may sound different from ordinary warriors, they are still human after all. As long as we are human, we have 7 emotions and 6 desires, we have joy, anger, sorrow, and selfishness and propriety. This major change has nothing to do with them. No matter how many people die, they will not interfere. Only the elephant in Bodhi Temple looked at the blood-red sky above his head for a long time. Somewhere in the dark, Gang Xiang sensed a huge crisis. Looking at the blood-red sky above his head, the blood-red clouds that seemed to split the entire sky, he seemed to see a huge sword energy spanning the north and south of the sky. The hairs all over his body stood up, and every inch of flesh and blood on his body was frantically warning. If he stays in Shangjing City, he will die. Such a voice suddenly appeared in Gang Xiang's mind. The voice echoed in his mind and lingered for a long time. For a moment, Gang Xiang was scared and wanted to leave Shangjing City immediately to avoid this life and death crisis. But the next moment, he hesitated again. As a warrior who unites nature and man, Gang Xiang has his own arrogance and pride. The enemy has not yet appeared, but he is greedy for life and afraid of death, and flees. This kind of thing, Gang Xiang cannot do. Once he is today, if he escapes, his martial arts heart will be completely broken. His martial arts realm will never be improved in this life, and he will have to wait for death in the future. A poor monk will not run away. Our Bodhi temple has stood firm in the world for hundreds of years. After many hardships, we will never be defeated. A firm look flashed in Gang Xiang's eyes, driving away all the timidity in his heart. At the same time, on the other side, Xiao Wuji also saw the flaming cloud above his head, and he felt something in his heart, and was determined in his heart. Even God can't stand it. He wants you to die. It's time for the Xiao royal family to pay its debts. Huh. The mist surged up, Xiao Wuji's body shape changed, and instantly turned into the appearance of Xiao Zhantian. Then the next second, a terrifying aura erupted from Xiao Wuji's body, and in an instant, a pillar of light rose into the sky and penetrated directly into the sky. Yung Xiao. The wind roared in the sky, and the clouds surged and boiled. The fire clouds across the sky were torn apart, and a big hole was instantly opened. Countless people in the capital, warriors, and millions of troops outside the city all felt this terrible aura and saw the sky. The vision changed, and the pillar of true energy connecting heaven and earth. Fear arose in the hearts of countless people. At this moment, Xiao Zhantian's voice, enveloped by the true energy, spread to everyone inside and outside Shangjing City. A corner. I, Xiao Zhantian, am here for revenge. The day when the Xiao family of Daliang will be destroyed is now. All idle people will retreat, and there will be no resentment in life or death. The voice echoed, making countless people feel frightened and trembled. Xiao Zhantian. Xiao Zhantian is finally here. Run quickly. What comes this time is not the incarnation of a heavenly being, but the real heavenly being. Shangjing is going to become a battlefield. Run quickly, stay away from the palace, that is the center of the battlefield, and anyone who stays there will die. The battle between heaven and man is finally about to begin. Countless people and warriors fled in all directions, and they all fled away from the palace, as if there was a netherworld ghost there. Thousands of people from the Xiao family in Daliang also heard Xiao Zhantian's voice, and ran out of the palace hall one after another, headed by it was the Seven Swords King Xiao Hung. All their eyes were focused on the true energy beam that connected the heaven and the earth. They knew that the Xiao Zhantian's great enemy was within the beam of light. Heavenly beings, is this the true power of heavenly beings? Xiao Hung looked at the beam of light, feeling the sense of oppression coming from afar, and he couldn't help but feel fear in his heart. He had fought with Xiao Zhantian, but in that battle he only faced an incarnation of heaven. Now, when facing the deity, I realized that the difference in strength between the deity and the incarnation is as big as clouds and mud. Although the half-step deity also has the word deity, the gap between him and the real strong man who combines heaven and man is too big. Seven Swords Wang Xiaohung still had thoughts of thinking, but the other vassal kings were only scared. They all looked pale, their pupils were dilated, their expressions were dull, their brains were blank, and they lost the ability to think. Seeing this, the Seven Swords King couldn't help but he yelled, "Quick, send the signal fireworks to let the army enter the city." Only then did many feudal kings react and send out signal fireworks in a panic. Seeing these feudal princes unable to hold up the wall, Xiao Hung was so angry that he was shaken to death and felt extremely disgusted in his heart. Such a waste is actually him, Xiao Hung. The bloodline of the royal family. The enemy is still trying to fight for power and the supreme position. Now you know how to be afraid, don't you think it's too late? Boom. Cut. Xiao Zhantian's voice sounded like a thunderous explosion, roaring endlessly. The light pillar connecting the sky and the earth suddenly shone brightly, forming a huge sword energy, falling from the sky, and smashing down heavily on the Daliang Palace. There were hundreds of sword energy. It was as long as a meter, like a huge mountain falling from the sky. This sword energy seemed to split the sky and shatter the earth. The power could not be described in words. The sword energy had not yet arrived, but the pressure of the sword force had already exploded, and countless people in the palace were so pressed that they fell to their knees. Facing the sword from heaven, they had no power to resist and could only kneel down and wait for death. Blood spurted from the mouth and nose of Xiao Hung, the Seven Sword King, and the sword energy in his body was affected by Xiao Zhantian's sword intention. It triggered and exploded again, damaging all his internal organs. The bones in Xiao Hung's body creaked. He did not kneel down, but was still gritting his teeth to hold on. He would rather die than kneel down in front of Xiao Zhantian. Please take action, master. Xiao Hung gritted his teeth and shouted something. Amitabha. At the critical moment, a Buddha's chant suddenly sounded and spread in all directions. It was the Bodhi temple god Gangxiang who took action, and he was also the one who took action. I saw the Buddha's light in the palace flourishing, the endless Buddha's light gathered, and merged with the power of heaven and earth to form a tall statue. The incarnation of the Vajradharma is hundreds of meters away. The incarnation of the Vajradharma has its breasts exposed, the muscles of the whole body are bulging, the face is ferocious, and the green face has fangs. It does not look like the golden light of Buddhism, but more like an evil Shura ghost. After the incarnation of the Vajradharma appears, it faces the oncoming sword. Chi punched out. Boom. The sword energy and the fist collided head-on, and a deafening loud noise erupted in an instant. The ripples of true energy visible to the naked eye exploded and rushed in all directions. The ruins wherever they went were destroyed, and the earth was layered. After being thrown away, the bodies of the eunuchs and palace maids exploded and disappeared into ashes. The Seven Swords King Xiao Hung vomited blood, and the feudal kings around him were even more unbearable. Blood spurted from their mouths and noses, and they wailed in pain. Some of them even exploded and were shattered into pieces. Not everyone can withstand the aftermath of the human war. Even if Gangxiang resists 90% of the aftermath for them, they can't withstand the remaining layer. Each of the vassal kings who dreamed of ascending the throne after the war had just begun. He was already in hell. The aftermath of the impact enveloped the entire palace, causing the entire capital city to shake several times. Countless people in the city felt that the ground was shaking, their feet were unstable, and countless people fell to the ground. After a long time, Zhenyu and the impact of the aftermath finally dissipated. The beam of light connecting heaven and earth also slowly dissipated, revealing Xiao Wuji's true form of heaven and man. Xiao Zhantian stood in the air, surrounded by endless sword energy, killing the intention of the sword enveloped the entire upper capital, causing countless people's scalps to numb and their hairs to burst. Xiao Zhantian's sword intention was so terrifying that even if you just looked at him, you would be injured by the sword intention, and your eyes would shed tears or even bleed. On the other side, in the palace, the incarnation of the Vajradharma is standing tall, emitting dazzling Buddha light. Inside its eyebrows, there is a human figure sitting cross-legged. It is the strong elephant of the gods and humans of Bodhi Temple. The two gods and humans stand facing each other, and the heaven and earth are dead silent. Liuguang Villa in the middle, Xiao Wuji said to many Jinyi guards, the battle between heaven and man is too terrible. You must save your own lives, so evacuate now. Also, immediately send a letter to King Huainan of Black Eagle City in the southern border about going to the capital, telling him that he can send troops. What is here now is Xiao Wuji's incarnation of a heavenly being. The human eyes of ordinary warriors cannot see through the truth. Sima Lang, the fourth eunuch, nodded and said, "Okay, that's it. I'll do it right away. By the way, what about you, 13th brother? Won't you evacuate together?" Xiao Wuji shook his head and said, "Liao's battle between heaven and man only happens once in 100 years, how could I miss it? I'm going to watch the fight." As soon as these words came out, everyone suddenly looked worried. Sima Lang stopped him and said, "13th brother cannot take personal risks. The battle between heaven and man is extremely dangerous. It is better to evacuate with us." They all witnessed the battle just now, and the terrifying attack and killing power is no joke. And everyone knows that the move just now was just a test, and the two heavenly beings have not yet shown their true strength. Wait for the two heavenly beings to if people fight with all their strength, the aftermath of the battle will be even more terrifying. Even a great master may not be able to survive the aftermath. Xiao Wuji smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm good at lightness kung fu, and my escape skills are top-notch. Besides, I won't get too close, I will only watch from a distance. If something unexpected happens, I will evacuate immediately. The battle between heaven and man has not happened for 100 years. This is a great opportunity for me and it is worth taking the risk." After saying that, without waiting for everyone's advice, Xiao Wuji had already ascended and left. The lightning flashed, and it was the full-level lightning god walk. As soon as the lightning flashed, Xiao Wuji disappeared without a trace. Sima Lang, the fourth eunuch, couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. He could guess what Xiao Wuji was thinking. Obviously, a proud man like Xiao Wuji also had the desire to break through the unity of nature and man. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 368. From Sima Lang's point of view, Xiao Wuji did not hesitate to risk his own life to watch the battle today because he wanted to gain enlightenment from the battle between heaven and man and further improve his strength. This method of gaining enlightenment by watching powerful warriors fight has been around since ancient times. Not only Xiao Wuji had this idea, but Sima Lang also had this idea. It's just that his strength is not as strong as Xiao Wuji's, and his courage is not as courageous as Xiao Wuji's, so he doesn't dare to go. Sima Lang could guess that today's battle between heaven and man would be a feast of enlightenment for countless warriors in Shangjing City. Countless martial artists who have become crazy about martial arts will still watch the battle even if they know it is extremely dangerous. Even if you die for it, you won't hesitate. It's a pity that I don't have the courage. Sima Lang shook his head and sighed, unable to help but laugh at himself. He was also a genius when he was young, and of course he is not old now. The possibility of breaking through the Grand Master in this life is very high. But that's it. He is above the Grand Master. Sima Lang has never dreamed of the unity of nature and man. Instead of risking his own life to watch the battle, it is better to lead people to retreat honestly. Compared with martial arts, his own life is more important. He still has his lovely wife and concubine are waiting for him to come home. He can't die. Everyone obeys the order and evacuates from the secret passage immediately. Sima Lang gave an order, and all the Jinyi guards in Liuguan courtyard evacuated. Xiao Wuji's incarnation of the heavenly man came to a hidden corner, turned around, and instantly transformed into Xiao Zhantian. Watching the battle was naturally fake. Xiao Wuji was just looking for an excuse to take action. If he didn't leave, wouldn't he be missing a half-step celestial level combat power? It's slow to say, but it only takes the blink of an eye. In the sky, Xiao 227 slashed the sky and hung in the air. He stood with a face as cold as frost and murderous intent. Xiao Zhantian stepped on the void and walked towards the palace step by step, finally stopping in the sky above the palace. Gangxiang, it seems that Pusi is determined to be buried with the Xiao royal family. Xiao Zhantian said lightly. Amitabha. Gangxiang opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Zhantian in front of him, with a look of compassion flashing in his eyes. Donor Xiao is already a master of the unity of heaven and man. He is different from ordinary people. Why bother to commit murder again? When is the time to repay injustice? Why not put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha immediately? He. Xiao Zhantian couldn't help but sneered and laughed loudly. You are indeed a Buddhist monk. At this time, you still want to transform me. It's a pity that I will retaliate. I just want to give blood for blood, tooth for tooth. As long as the Xiao royal family is immortal, my heart will never be at peace. Gangxiang shook his head and recited the Buddha's name softly. Amitabha, Xiao Donor, there are poor monks here today. Xiao Donor can't destroy the Daliang royal family. Donor Xiao's attempt to destroy an entire country with one man's power was a bit fanciful. Xiao Zhantian sneered and said, who said that I only have the power of one person? What? As soon as these words came out, not only Gangxiang was stunned. Seven-sword King Xiao Hung and many seriously injured feudal kings in the palace were all stunned. Then they saw Xiao Zhantian in the sky wave his hand, and a roar sounded. Where is the killer of Kishalu? The sound was loud and powerful, spreading in all directions and lasting for a long time. The next second, countless voices of echo and response rang out in Shangjing City. The subordinates are here. Obey the Lord's command. Whoosh! 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 Countless black shadows appeared from every corner of Shangjing City, quickly gathered, and came outside the palace. In the frightened eyes of the Daliang city guards, these killers had already appeared from everywhere. They were approaching the palace and seemed to be sealing it off. Xiao Hung, the king of seven swords, flew to the highest point on the roof of the main hall. Looking at Xiao Zhantian's killers appearing from all over the city, his face instantly darkened. Kishalu? Isn't this Dazhu's killer organization? Why does it appear here? Also, how did they get into the city? Are all the city defenders blind? Actually let so many killers sneak into Shangjing City. Waste, they are all a bunch of waste. Phew. At this moment, a stream of light came through the sky, and instantly came to Xiao Zhantian's side, standing side by side with Xiao Zhantian. The person who came was the incarnation of Xiao Zhantian, and Xiao Zhantian also grabbed the man is clearly Xiao Tian's. Xiao Hung, do you still remember me? Xiao Tian's glared at Xiao Hung angrily. Who are you? Xiao Hung frowned. Xiao Tian's is over 80, but he is still considered a junior in front of Xiao Hung. 62 years ago, there were many people in the Xiao family, so it was naturally impossible for Xiao Hung to know everyone in the Xiao family. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Tian's laughed, a little sarcastically. Yes, it's normal for you not to remember me after 62 years, but I remember you. I will never forget this face of yours. I am Xiao Tian's, grandson of Xiao Kang, do you remember now? Xiao Tian's. Xiao Kang's grandson. Xiao Hung's expression instantly darkened. How could he not recognize Xiao Kang? That was King Yuping 62 years ago. Xiao Kang was so powerful back then that it was Xiao Hung and the heads of many martial arts families who joined forces to kill Xiao Kang. Killed. But Xiao Kang desperately killed the three great masters and seriously injured them. 62 years later, Xiao Kang's angry and crazy look was still vivid in his mind. As for Xiao Tian's, a remnant of the Xiao family, Xiao Hung has long forgotten. It's you who trained Xiao Zhantian. Xiao Hung gritted his teeth, wishing he could crush Xiao Tian's into ashes. Without Xiao Tian's, there would be no Xiao Zhantian today. Xi, ha 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 ha, yes, it's me. Xiao Tian's looked up to the sky and laughed. Back then, you the Xiao royal family, destroyed my Xiao family indiscriminately. Today, it is my Xiao family's turn to destroy your Xiao family. From now on, there will only be one Xiao family left in Daliang. Xiao Tian's voice boomed over the palace, and also reached the ears of each martial arts family head. Some martial arts family elders or family heads who have lived for a long time remember Xiao Tian's. They were the same generation as Xiao Tian's back then. Some people even have a quarrel with Xiao Tian's. It's Xiao Tian's, and he's actually still alive. I thought he had died long ago. Unexpectedly, after 62 years, Xiao Tian's actually came back alive and brought back the even more terrifying Xiao Zhantian. The Xiao family really didn't deserve to die. 30 years in Hedong, 30 years in Hexi, 62 years, it's too long. Many old men with white beards and hair shook their heads and sighed, sighing. Okay, the old grudges have been settled, it's time to pay off the debt. Xiao Zhantian took a step forward, looked at Gang Xiang and said, Gang Xiang, this place is too small for you and me to use it. How about going to fight outside the city? Gang Xiang clasped his hands together, nodded and said, Amitabha, this poor monk has exactly what he means. As soon as the words fell, the Vajradharma appearance around them dispersed. The two looked at each other and instantly turned into two streams of light shooting out of the city. The gods themselves cannot travel thousands of miles in an instant like the incarnation, but the speed of their Qinggong is not comparable to that of a great master or a half-step celestial being. In a flash of light, the two of them disappeared without a trace. In the sky above the palace, Xiao Zhantian's celestial incarnation put Xiao Tian's down, and Xiao Tian's flew down and landed on the roof of a palace hall. The two of them, their eyes were fixed on Xiao Hung, the Seven-Sword King. The blood on the corner of Xiao Hung's mouth had not been wiped dry yet, and his weak aura seemed to Xiao Zhantian like a candle in the night sky, which would be extinguished at any time. Xiao Zhantian's murderous intention surged. At this moment, Gang Xiang's incarnation of the heavenly being also appeared in front of Xiao Hung out of thin air, blocking Xiao Zhantian's murderous intent. Donor Xiao, how about you and my incarnation also go to fight outside the city? The incarnation Gang Xiang said. No need, I'll just kill you here. Xiao Zhantian said in a cold voice, Daliang Palace is also a geomantic treasure, and it can be used as your burial place. Before he finished speaking, Xiao Zhantian took action boldly, raised his hand and crushed it down with one palm. The power of heaven and earth gathered to form a monstrous Buddha's palm, which descended from the sky. It was the seventh form of Tathagata's divine palm, and the heavenly Buddha came to the world. Amitabha, Donor Xiao is not a Buddhist, but he uses Buddhist martial arts to kill people. He really has no mercy at all. The incarnation of Gang Xiang flew up, and palms all over the sky appeared behind him. They gathered together and slapped Xiao Wuji's heavenly Buddha with one palm. There was a loud bang and the palms collided. It seemed that they were evenly matched, but Gang Xiang took several steps back. The domineering power of Tathagata palm made Gang Xiang secretly frightened. What kind of martial arts is this? The palm power is so domineering, far better than my unique skill at Bodhi Temple. Come again. Xiao Zhantian succeeded with one move, and his powerful palm movements changed instantly. As Xiao Zhantian raised his hand and waved, clouds were swirling around him, and the wind suddenly rose. With a palm shot, the true energy turned into clouds all over the sky and moved towards the incarnation of Gang Xiang. Crushing down, it was the sky-tearing and cloud-tearing move of the Pei'un palm. This was a powerful move, powerful enough to tear the sky apart. Bang! Facing Xiao Zhantian's killing move, Gang Xiang did not dare to look down upon it. The moment he put his hands together, the Buddha's light flourished all over him, and the incarnation of the Vajradharma reappeared. However, compared with the condensed Dharma of the deity, the size of the Dharma gathered in the incarnation was only one-third as big. But even if it was only one-third, it was more than 100 meters. The incarnation of Vajradharma punched out, and collided with the cloud-dispelling palm falling from the sky. Both of them exploded with their killing moves. Master Gangxiang, Wang helps you. Seven Sword King Xiao Hung saw the battle between Xiao Zhantian and Gangxiang. He roared and flew forward. But a roar exploded at this moment. One breath moves the mountains and rivers. The huge palm crushed down, and it was Xiao Tian's who took action. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 369. Xiao Hung, your opponent is me. Xiao Tian's roared. Seven Sword King Xiao Hung flew back, raised his hand and pointed. Seven swords came out, and penetrated Xiao Tian's giant palm. You traitor, even a mere Grand Master dares to challenge me, I don't know whether he will live or die. It's okay to be crushed by Xiao Zhantian. After all, Xiao Zhantian is a true master of the unity of heaven and man, and he can't beat him. But Xiao Tian's is only at the peak level of a Grand Master. Now even Xiao Tian's dares to challenge him, which really makes Xiao Hung was furious. Xiao Tian's laughed ferociously. If you were in your heyday, I would naturally not be your opponent, but now you are seriously injured and have received new injuries. Your combat power is less than 30% of what you were in your heyday. What should I be afraid of? Xiao Zhantian had told Xiao Tian's before that the Seven Swords King Xiao Hung was seriously injured by him. With the Seven Swords King's ability, it would be impossible to recover from his injuries in less than 30 years. Now it turns out that it is indeed the case. The Seven Swords King Xiao Hung, the power of Hung's sword just now was really not what he should have been. Hateful. Having been exposed by Xiao Tian's, Xiao Hung was so angry that he was shaking all over and his face turned red. How could he not know that Xiao Tian's was telling the truth? If he were in his prime, he could kill a peak Grandmaster warrior like Xiao Tian's with just one sword. But now he has not recovered from his serious injury. He can hardly mobilize the power of heaven and earth. His strength is not much stronger than Xiao Tian's. Do you think you are destined to be the king? Dream. Someone come. Xiao Hung roared, and several figures suddenly jumped out of the palace. They were 4 people, 3 bald heads, and a military commander. All 4 of them were powerful masters. The 3 bald heads were obviously monks from Bodhi Temple. As for the military commander, it was General Daliang. Xiao Tian's landed on the roof and smiled ferociously. Do you think you are the only one with helpers? I have it too. Someone come. Xiao Tian's roared, and the wall on the left was suddenly knocked open. A burly and sturdy man suddenly appeared in everyone's eyes. The person who came was the barbarian Elephant King. Another person floated over, and his whole body was exuding a cold air. It was Han Rufeng. There was another person who came silently behind Xiao Tian's, but this person was wearing a mask of a strange beast, and he was the owner of Tianqian Tower of Kishalu. There were 5 people on one side, 4 people on the other side, 8 great masters and a half-step sky. When people confront each other, murderous intent breaks out, tearing apart the walls. Humph, there are only 3 of them, how can they be my royal family's opponents? Xiao Hung couldn't help but sneer when he saw this. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a sword energy fell from the sky and instantly penetrated a great monk behind him. The great monk didn't even let out a scream, and his body exploded into a mist of blood. No bones left. The sword energy remained powerful after killing the great monk, and shot towards Xiao Hung. Xiao Hung reacted immediately, and with a thought, the 7 swords merged into one, and faced the sword energy head-on. There was a click. The 7 swords exploded. Xiao Hung shot backwards, vomiting blood, and a bloody left arm flew up into the air, and was strangled into pulp by the sword energy. With a bang, Xiao Hung smashed through a wall, and his body was buried in the rubble. Mysterious suffering. Seeing that the great monk was killed, the other two great monks immediately let out a cry of grief. The two looked up at Xiao Zhantian in the air, their eyes were blood red, and they were filled with hatred. The person who took action was clearly Xiao Zhantian. Xiao Zhantian said to the two, looked at each other with a blind eye, shook their heads with some regret and said, "What a pity, Xiao Hung was not killed." The incarnation of Gangxiang said with a gloomy face, "Xiao Zhantian, as a master of heavenly beings, doesn't it feel a bit shameless to sneak attack on a junior?" Xiao Zhantian said nonchalantly, "Junior, who is junior? I am not yet 40 years old this year, so I don't know who the junior is. Besides, you didn't know that you saw me sneaking up on him. My sword energy was obviously heading towards you, but you missed it, and then it hit you, the monk of Bodhi Temple. If you want to blame, I can only blame you, not me." You. Incarnation Gangxiang was so angry that he couldn't speak. At this moment, he finally understood that Xiao Zhantian was different from the heavenly masters he had seen before. Xiao Zhantian did things unscrupulously, did not care about face at all, and had no bottom line. Such people are often the most difficult to deal with. Bang! The seven-sword king Xiao Hung climbed up from the ruins and sealed the wound on his broken arm with acupuncture to prevent it from bleeding. Just now, the sword cut off his arm, and there was sword energy again entering the body. Adding new injuries to old injuries, Xiao Hung's combat power is less than 20% of what he was in his prime. "Xiao Zhantian, you are extremely hateful." Xiao Hung stared at Xiao Zhantian in mid-air with endless hatred, and his eyes were about to burst, as if he wanted to eat Xiao Zhantian alive. If eyes could kill, Xiao Zhantian would have been riddled with holes, and he would have died without a complete body. Seeing this, Zhantian smiled coldly. 4 versus 5 is not fair, now 4 versus 4 is fair. Xiao Hung was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and panted, "I have 1,000,000 troops in Daliang. Do you think you can win like this, dream?" Xiao Zhantian sneered and said, "Where are your millions of troops? I didn't see it." You. Xiao Hung was suddenly startled, and a cold air surged from his back. "It was only after hindsight that I suddenly woke up. The warning fireworks have been set off, so it stands to reason that the army should have entered the city by now. But now there is no movement." Boom! At this moment, there was a loud roar in the distance, followed by a mighty cry of killing. Xiao Hung's 6 senses were sensitive and he vaguely heard the words "break the city, attack the city and rescue people." Only then did he realize that his millions of troops had not entered the city at all, but were blocked outside the city. "What have you done?" Xiao Hung was shocked, and his heart was extremely panicked. Xiao Zhantian did not answer, looked at Xiao Hung indifferently, and said lightly, "Dead people don't need to know so much. You can ask the king of hell after you die." At this moment, at the gate of Shangjing city, 1,000,000 troops are gathering, trying to rush into the city to save King Qin. But, unfortunately, the gate of Shangjing city is closed. Not only the east gate, but also the other 3 gates in the south, south and northwest. Open. No matter how the generals outside the city yelled, the soldiers guarding the gate would not open the door. The vassal king's army had no choice but to attack the city by force. The vassal king had hundreds of thousands of troops. It was easy to break through the city gate. However, the Hui army actually turned against the enemy and stabbed the feudal king's army from behind, making them unable to look at each other. For a moment, the Hui army and the feudal king's army were fighting fiercely. It was naturally impossible to break through the city gate. Inside the city guards wanted to rush into the palace to rescue him, but they were stopped by a group of martial arts masters. The ones who intercepted them were the killers from Kishalu. But the killers from Kishalu could only 1/3 and 2/3 were from the major martial arts families. The 8 major families controlled by Xiao Zhantian finally came into play at this time, leading their clansmen to attack the city guard and kill them. They were blocked outside the palace. Several family members in the city who were sitting on the mountain watching the fight were dumbfounded, as if they were dreaming. I am not wrong, right? Are those people from the Zhao family? You read that right. There are also the Qian family, the Wang family, and the Shangchuan family. Don't they have a blood feud with the Yuping Wang clan? If you didn't help the royal family to fight against the enemy at this time, why did you switch sides and start helping the Xiao family against the royal family? Could it be that they wanted to obtain Xiao Zhantian's forgiveness in this way, so as to get a chance of survival? Maybe, who knows? These old men are really insidious. 62 years ago, they helped the royal family to destroy the Xiao family, and now they help the Xiao family to destroy the imperial family. Such two-sided behavior is really despising to us. Hum, I'm afraid they are just out of their minds. Who is Xiao Zhantian? Anger will be retaliated, killing people is like hemp. The 8 aristocratic families have a grudge against him for genocide. How can Xiao Zhantian let them go? Just watch, when the royal family is destroyed, the 8 great families will follow in the footsteps of the royal family. Alas, the Xiao royal family has controlled Daliang for hundreds of years and is finally about to change hands. An old warrior looked in the direction of the palace, sighing deeply, with complex eyes and sighs. At this moment, a sword energy suddenly erupted in the palace. The sword energy was as cold as ice, as if it could freeze human blood. Xiao Zhan was seen. Tian raised his hand and pointed at Xiao Heng, shooting out a sword energy to kill him. However, a Buddha's palm came across the sky and crushed Xiao Zhantian's sword energy into pieces. Xiao Zhantian, your opponent is a poor monk. The incarnation of Gangxiang came towards Xiao Zhantian. The incarnation of Vajradharma had a ferocious face. He raised his hand and dropped a palm from the sky, trying to suppress Xiao Zhantian. Even though he has a small skill, he still dares to do the same thing. Facing Gangxiang's killing move, Xiao Zhantian did not retreat but advanced. His whole body flew into the air and turned into a sword energy soaring into the sky, instantly piercing Gangxiang's Buddha palm. However, Gangxiang's incarnation of the Vajradharma phase only retreated. He stopped after the last step, and the broken palm quickly recovered. The Vajra-glazed body is indeed the unique skill of Bodhi Temple. It is indeed very effective. But it's still a little bit better to use it against me. Today, I see that I have broken your golden body and beaten you to the point of death. Xiao Zhantian roared, and his whole body turned into a violent wind. The power of heaven and earth surged in, and instantly turned into a giant tornado. Heavy rain and strong wind. Act vigorously and resolutely. The wind swept the building to pieces. The huge tornado sprayed out the shadows of legs all over the sky, pouring down on the incarnation of the Vajradharma like a heavy rain. Gangxiang saw the power of this killing move and did not dare to be careless at all. He raised his palm to meet the enemy and fought with Xiao Zhantian head-on. The palms and legs are connected, and the true energy bursts out, ripples sweep in all directions. The divine wind howls. Xiao Zhantian's body rotated rapidly, and he controlled a giant tornado to hit the chest of the incarnation of the Vajradharma. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 370. The tornado is like a sharp cone, tearing apart the Vajradharma appearance. The incarnations of Vajradharma retreated continuously, and the Buddha's light dimmed instantly. King Kong body protection. Gangxiang roared ferociously, bursting out a large amount of true energy, merging the power of heaven and earth to form a diamond armor on his chest. The Buddha's light shone in his hand, and a Vajra pestle appeared out of thin air and smashed into the tornado. In other words, it smashed into Xiao Zhantian in the tornado. The power of his soul had already sensed Xiao Zhantian's location, so he attacked directly at the head. The tornado exploded, clouds and mist filled the sky, and Xiao Zhantian's figure disappeared instantly. Gang Xiang's blow missed, and he quickly used the power of his soul he tried his best to find Xiao Zhantian's whereabouts. But at this moment, a cold and murderous intention came from the sky above his head. Xiao Zhantian was seen falling from the sky, and a pair of iron fists kept blasting out, bursting the sky with cold air. The weapon used was the Sky Frost Fist, one of the 3 most magical skills. Lots of frost marks. Icebergs of frost and snow. Aoxu Ling Shuang. Countless punches poured down, constantly bombarding the Vajradharma appearance. The Vajradharma appearance exploded inch by inch, and then was frozen by the cold air. In the blink of an eye, the Vajradharma appearance turned into a giant ice sculpture. 893 This, how can it be? When the seriously injured Seven Swords King Xiao Hung saw this scene, he was furious and spit out another mouthful of blood. How is this impossible? Who do you think his opponent is? That is my Xiao family's genius, Xiao Zhantian. Xiao Tians laughed loudly, and slapped Xiao Hung with a palm, sending him flying hundreds of meters. Xiao Hung vomited blood, and the blood in his body was almost drained. If it were an ordinary person, even a powerful person at the peak of the Grand Master, with him the current injury has already caused death 1,000 times. The reason why he can still hold on is because Xiao Hung uses the power of heaven and earth to protect his heart and preserve the last breath of true energy, so he can survive. As long as this breath is gone, he will die undoubtedly. Ancestor. Seeing Xiao Hung being beaten away, several princes of the Xiao royal family were shocked and rushed forward to help. Xiao Tians was not angry but was happy when he saw this. Well done, I am worried that I don't have time to deal with you guys. Ants. Since you eagerly came to die, I will help you. Xiao Tians smiled ferociously, stretched out both palms, and shot out several palm shadows in an instant. The palm shadows shot out of the air, hitting the 4 vassal kings, and instantly beat them into blood mist. Seeing such a terrifying scene, the vassal kings behind him were frightened. I was so frightened that I never dared to do it again. Children of the royal family, pampered and pampered, grew up in a honey pot, and had almost no whiplash from life. There are very few people who are not afraid of death like Xiao Hung, King of 7 Swords. Some of them are cowardly cowards like Xiao Duo who are greedy for life and afraid of death. Xiao Tian's murder method is brutal and he does not leave the whole body, so they are naturally afraid. How? Don't dare to do it? Then do it yourself. Xiao Tian smiled ferociously, flew up, and struck down 6 more vassal kings with several palm shadows. In the blink of an eye, 10 vassal kings died in his hands. Stop. 7 Sword King Xiao Hung's eyes are splitting, and his heart is bleeding. Although these vassal kings are ineffective, they are the last heritage of his Xiao royal family. If Xiao Tians kills them all, then there will really be no one in his Xiao royal family can carry the banner. Even if they can win the final victory by then, the Xiao family in Daliang will no longer be able to control the world, and will eventually be destroyed. The sword-fighting sword has many shadows. Xiao Hung raised his hand and pointed, 7 swords shot out at Xiao Tians. However, when he used this move at this moment, he had no power from heaven and earth, and his true energy was extremely weak, and the power was unbearable. Xiao Tians was not afraid at all, and shot out both palms. Exploded the sword energy. The 7 swords flew back and were inserted at Xiao Hung's feet, which also made Xiao Hung extremely miserable. Only then did he realize that he was at the end of his rope. Not to mention the more terrifying Xiao Zhantian, even one he couldn't even deal with Xiao Tians. On the other side, Xiao Zhantian did not stop his offensive after freezing the Vajradharma incarnation, but launched another killing move. Cloud-paling palms overwhelming mountains and seas, disasters fall from the sky, gloomy clouds are bleak, 3 moves were launched at the same time, bombarding the huge ice sculpture. With a loud bang, the ice sculpture transformed into Vajradharma was exploded by Xiao Zhantian. I saw a figure shooting out from among the ice fragments in the sky, smashing a palace into ruins. When the dust cleared, a figure suddenly appeared in the ruins, and it was Gangxiang. Gangxiang was half kneeling in the ruins, his figure was dim and his body was transparent, obviously he had consumed a lot of power. Heavenly man, the incarnation will not be injured, will not bleed, and will only disappear completely after exhausting its power. Xiao Zhantian used the 3 magic skills to defeat Gangxiang's Vajradharma incarnation head-on, consuming at least 50% of his incarnation's power. Where did Xiao Zhantian learn this peerless martial arts? The Buddhist martial arts and swordsmanship used before were nothing more than that, but now there are 3 complementary magical skills of fists, palms and legs. Is it possible that this person's martial arts talent is really so evil? The magic skills are not something you can just learn if you want to learn them, or practice them if you want to. As we all know, the magic skills cannot be practiced by those who are not naturally gifted. Those who are not talented enough will have the magic skills placed in front of them, and they will read them day and night. My eyes were dazzled, the secret books were all overturned, and I couldn't get started. The martial arts used by Xiao Zhantian, whether it was Buddhist palm techniques, sword skills, or the 3 unique magic skills, were all the top magic skills in the world. Ordinary people think to cultivate a magical skill to the level of Xiao Zhantian, it will take a lifetime of effort and 100 years of strength. But Xiao Zhantian has reached the top of everything and is so powerful that he can't help but be frightened. Gangxiang claims to be a god. Otherwise, it would be impossible for such a handsome person to embark on the road to heaven. But compared with Xiao Zhantian, he is not even a little bit behind. This person is less than 40 years old, but his martial arts skills have already reached such a level. Is it possible that this person is the reincarnation of Emperor Biwen? Gangxiang was secretly shocked. In his impression, in the past 1,000 years, only Emperor Biwen, who dominated the world 1,000 years ago, had such cultivation when he was young. The rest are all vulnerable. Compared with Xiao Zhantian, who is known as Shangguan Wudao, the strongest genius in 200 years, is simply a waste. While Gangxiang was thinking about it, Xiao Zhantian did not give him a chance to make a comeback. Xiao Zhantian pointed out, the powerful real energy exploded, the power of heaven and earth merged, and shot out 3 red, green, and blue light beams. The 3-color light beams merged into one, directly taking the head on the neck of the rigid elephant. This move is clearly a 3-point return of vitality. The most powerful killing move in the game, Guiyuan's blow. The 3-point Guiyuan Qi combines the length of Fengxian's legs, the fierceness of the cloud-dispelling palm, and the cold internal power of Tianshuang fist into one. The Guiyuan strike contains 3 completely different internal forces at the same time. The 3 internal forces are mutually reinforcing and interfering with each other. They are endless and can be called the most powerful fingering technique in the world. No form, no birth, no death. Gangxiang was enveloped and blocked by the force of his powerful fingers. He had nowhere to escape or hide, and could only hit him head-on. Behind him, the incarnation of the Vajradharma reappeared, and he stretched out a giant finger of more than 10 meters to point at Xiao Zhantian. Boom! The tip of the needle is facing the wheat on, and Guiyuan's blow hits the huge finger of the incarnation of the Dharma. The difference in size between the two is the difference between clouds and mud, but the power is completely different. The moment the 2 fingers touch, the Vajradharma is incarnated. It suddenly shattered, exploded, and then disappeared into ashes. The incarnation of the Dharma was shattered, and the power of Guiyuan's blow remained undiminished. It focused heavily on Gangxiang's eyebrows. Bang! Gangxiang's heavenly incarnation seemed to turn into water, and a wave of energy surged from the center of his eyebrows. Ripples. Then the entire incarnation exploded and was completely wiped out. At this point, the heavenly being transformed into Gangxiang and died in battle. The loss of an incarnation of heavenly being will not have much impact on Gangxiang himself, but it will have a great impact on the situation in the palace. Too big. Because after killing Gangxiang's incarnation, Xiao Zhantian's incarnation was vacant. With such a terrifying fighting power, it was enough to wipe out all of them. No. Seven Swords King Xiao Hung couldn't accept this reality and couldn't help roaring. He was furious and another mouthful of blood spurted out. Xiao Tian seized the opportunity, flew up behind Xiao Hung, and slapped Xiao Hung hard on the face. Above the back of the heart. With a click, Xiao Hung's bones were broken. The powerful palm force broke into the body, destroying the internal organs and the 8 meridians. Wherever it went, the meridians were cut off, and the flesh and blood disappeared. Poof! Xiao Hung Yangtian spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body flew out like a sandbag, hitting the ground heavily, and rolled for more than 10 times before finally stopping. 5.2 Cough, cough, cough. Xiao Hung coughed loudly, gasping for breath, and the blood seemed to be killing him. The blood flowed out from the 7 orifices. He looked at Xiao Zhantian with a sharp breath in the air, and Xiao Tian's with a murderous secret, and felt extremely desperate in his heart. Could it be that God really wants to destroy our Xiao family? Xiao Hung's eyes shed tears, which merged with the blood. He couldn't tell whether they were tears or tears of blood. It's not that God wants to destroy your Xiao family, it's that we want to destroy your Xiao family. Xiao Tian's teleported to Xiao Hung, looked down at him, and said indifferently. Looking at Xiao Tian's, a long-standing memory appeared in Xiao Hung's mind. That was a memory from 62 years ago. That night was New Year's Eve, the entire city of Shangjing was immersed in the joy of the new year. He personally led an army and many masters from martial arts families to attack the palace of the Xiao family, the king of Yuping. The army invaded the palace and killed everyone on sight. Regardless of whether they were of the orthodox Xiao family's bloodline, they were all innocent servants and maids of the Xiao mansion, all of whom were mercilessly killed. Xiao Kang, the king of Yuping, was beheaded by him and several heads of martial arts families. At that time, he also looked down at the dying Xiao Kang with a sword. Beheaded Xiao Kang.